second book on the Thrawn trilogy, the new Thrawn trilogy, because we've already had one canon Thrawn trilogy. This is the second one, following the basically a prequel. We're learning the history of Thrawn, how he became this master tactician. All right, so again, this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you haven't read Greater Good yet, don't worry about it. Pause this video, stop it, go read Thrawn, come back. It's a good book. It's not a quick read, but after you've done it, come back, watch the review, let me know what you guys thought about it. All right, so if you follow the show, follow me on Twitter, you know that was lukewarm, a little bit warmer on Chaos Rising, the first of this new Thrawn trilogy. I said it was too similar to all the other Thrawn books. He was thrown into a situation that only Thrawn knew how to get out of, because he's the only one with the master plan, and he can see a ship changing course by 3 degrees and know exactly what was going to happen. So it felt very similar to all the other Thrawn books, so there wasn't any stakes. So I had some issues with it, and it wasn't an easy read. Greater Good, I can say, hits on those points and improves greatly, at least for me. For someone like myself that had certain issues with with Chaos Rising, Greater Good fixed those for the most part. If you're someone that loves the previous Thrawn books, love just focusing on Thrawn, the Master Tactician, you might have some issues with Greater Good, and I've seen those, and I'll talk about them in a minute as we go through our review. So real quick, the setup is more of a political thriller focused book, not a thriller, but a politically focused book. And the thing about the cheese is that the politics are not the type of politics that we see in Star Wars, at least in the movies and in the Clone Wars TV show. It's familial politics. So the cheese structure is just weird. It's weird, it's strange, and difficult to follow sometimes. There's the 9 ruling families that decide everything, and if you're not in the 9 ruling families, then you're trash. But now we learn that there's also 40 greater families or something like that are fighting for power to become part of the ruling families. That used to be 10 or 8. You can go up and down, and if you're in this group of 40 but you're somehow aligned to the 9 ruling families, then you have an in. But if someone from those 9 doesn't like you from your 40, then you're out. It's weird, and it's difficult to follow sometimes. And that's when Timothy Zahn's way of writing, either you get it or you'll be, I don't get this. It's a bit complicated. It is complicated, but I think Greater Good, it's an easier read than Chaos Rising. Maybe because you already have some of that backstory, but it's also an easier read, and I think it's explained a little bit better. General Yves the Benevolent, who was the bad guy in that first book, is mentioned a few times here. The Cheese have him and are using some of the information that he's given them to finish dealing with the Nicardun that were out there attacking the VAC Combine, so that Cheese the expansionary defense fleet is out there just finishing the job, basically. And then you still have from the Cheese family, Thurfian, and I'm gonna mess up all these names. That's one thing. Come on, Tim. Timothy Zahn. Tim, help me out. Throw me a bone. Throw me a Tom or a David, Rachel, Michael. Give me a name. Give me one of those names, because here we have Hapliv, we have Thurfian, Sistalmu. I'll say more names. The names are they're so difficult sometimes. I have here, let me find it real quick. There's a part that I'm reading. Look at all these names. Where is it? I lost it. Of course I lost it. It doesn't matter. I'll find it in a minute. It's just names that all start with the same letter, like same 5 first letter to start. You get thrown off. You don't know who's who at some point. So those are my biggest point of contention. And I lost my track. So let me go back. So Thurfian and Sistalmo, which were these 2 not they're part of the 9 ruling families. One is a myth, the other is a Irisi, which are two very important cheese family. They're trying to get Thrawn the hell out. They don't like Thrawn. He bends the rules. They're trying to get rid of him. They did the same thing in the first book. They're doing it again here. But at least their plan is a little bit more. They worked a little bit more on their plan. They have a better idea. They just want to send Thrawn, give him a fake report that there's something happening at the edge of the chaos. 2 bands of pirates are joining together. You need to go deal with it, and then they can just destroy him or kill him. Or if he wins, he'll break some rule, and they'll have to just kick him out, and then they can get more into power. So that's what they want. So this book, we still have the memories, which goes to the past. In the first Thrawn book, the memories were just Thrawn going through the motion, not going through the motions, but Thrawn's history, basically. And what I didn't like about the memories in that first book, that everything that he did there, then there was basically an excuse for the things that he was doing during the present time. It was, oh, he did it before, so don't worry, he can do it again. Here, the memories are more on the villains, so you start learning more about them. So, all right, so let me just go through my review. I know, I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of noise here as I move my papers around. All right, so again, spoilers. So, family and honor. Family honor and duties are what's important to the cheese, especially to Lakinda, who's one of the new characters, or one of the characters that we learn a lot more about in this book. Family, honor, and duties. So here we have family honor and military duties are at odds here. It's at war. Do you do what you need to do to help your family, or to help the cheese in general? And that's a big point of contention, especially for Lakinda, who's very family oriented. That's their motto, honor and duty. To Thrawn, he doesn't care about anything. He doesn't do politics. He just we gotta protect the cheese. The cheese ascendancy is the most important thing. I don't care about who I'm hurting, whose feelings I'm hurting. So that comes into play here a lot, and that's why all the political intrigue that Thrawn doesn't know how to deal with is gonna come back and bite him. So Timothy Zahn returns with our favorite cheese senior captain as he is faced with an enemy that dismantles its adversaries not with overwhelming starship, but from within, driving a wedge so deep that it takes them to a civil war. So here we have Hapleaf, which is not the main bad, because we'll get to him in a minute, but this type of adversary that's gonna be very difficult for Thrawn to deal with, because it's not, we have this military power coming to attack you, and Thrawn can just overthink them. He gets to know. He does very similarly what Thrawn does, in terms that he learns the cheese structure, their politics, their way of life, and uses that against them. So that's where the memories come in. They go back and forth on how Hapleaf of the Akbui is learning more about the cheese. So for greater good, Zahn follows, like I mentioned, the same structure as before, weaving the story between current day action and the memories that give us more insight into some of the main characters' past. In Chaos Rising, like I mentioned before, it was Thrawn, but here we are seeing events unfold from the villain's point of view, as we learn more about Hapleaf of the Akbui and main big bad Jixtus, a mysterious alien that has been controlling the events in the chaos. So another great thing about Chaos Rising, Greater Good, it's that all these memories are happening at the same time as the events of Chaos Rising. So in Chaos Rising, we know that a lot of it started because some ships of refugees came to this planet, and Thrawn found 2 of them ship. Everything else was destroyed. Almost everyone on board was dead. They didn't know what had happened. And then here we learn who were those refugees, where they came from, and all that's from the memories and all the things that we start to learn on this book. Yes, Dale, going back, because we're talking about Bad Batch and kids. Yeah, I have 2 kids, and that's ages, and we don't know how old Omega is, right? I'm guessing between 8 and 10, maybe 10 to 11. My kids are in that range. So that's why I know what they're going through. So I know that's why I'm starting to dig Omega a little bit. So the main story is subdivided into 3 simultaneous events in which the Chiefs are dealing with stragglers from their battle with the new Cardum and Yves the Benevolent from the first book, a mysterious group of refugees that wants to join the Beyond. They said, our planet is dead, everyone is dead, we need to sacrifice ourselves, join the Beyond, and that way from the Beyond we can help heal the planet. And then we learn that this is very similar to the Force. They just want to join the cosmic force and help the planet from the nether realms of the Force, but they call that the Beyond. So one cool thing about doing the book in the outer regions or the unknown regions, we start learning more about the Force. What we know the Force to be, the Chiefs call it third sight, and now we hear it as the Beyond. So the same concept from 3 different cultures, very different, the way of living, but still seeing the cosmic force in some way, or the Force in some way that makes sense to their way of life. And then also a possible alliance between 2 rival factions that together might threaten the Chief's ascendancy. So that's the story. We have our Lani that we met in the first book dealing with the Nicardum threat. We have Thrawn at one point having to deal with these 2 rival factions that might threaten them away on the other edge of the chaos, and then Lakinda dealing with something else in the middle, and then the bad guys with Hap-Leaf and Jigstoo's moving pieces around the chessboard. So it's 3 stories in one. So this 3-pronged narrative has our main cast separated for most of the book, but allows all of them to breathe outside of Thrawn and his machinations. And what I mean by this is Thrawn takes over anything. If Thrawn's in any chapter of the book, he's going to be the main focus. And that takes away from the other characters, which was one of my issues with Chaos Rising. I said, yeah, Thrawn's there, Thrawn is great. I didn't care too much about the secondary cast. It's supporting cast. I didn't learn a lot about them. I didn't care about them. Here, completely different. Thrawn is on one end, our Lani is on one side, and Lakinda's on the other. So we learn a lot about all of them. So on the second book of this Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, Timothy Zahn was able to put out, like I mentioned before, to ease the concerns that I had after reading Chaos Rising. Here we get to spend more time with the supporting cast, get to know their motivations, and let us create a connection with them, or at least for me, a connection that I didn't get in Chaos Rising. The highlight of the returning cast is Lakinda. We didn't get a lot with Lakinda on that first book. We get basically half the book is from her point of view, and I love learning more about Lakinda. It's a great character. It's going to play an even bigger role in Lesser Evil when it comes out later this year. So we have a mid-cap. So Lakinda's a mid-captain of the Sodlak family, which is not part of the 9 ruling family, but of the 40 greater. And they want to join. So that's why anything that she does has to be by the book for the family. So she's pushed between loyalty and honor to her family and loyalty to her commanding officers and the Chief's expansionary defense fleet. Where does her loyalties lie? And that's even in the back of the book. You can see between fleet and family, where does her loyalty lie? And that's not for Thrawn, that's for Lakinda. So again, a book about Thrawn, the back cover is talking about a different character. She wants to prove that she's worthy of praise, but always seems to come short or has to submit to Thrawn's crazy plans and wild tactics. And even if she's in the middle of the battle, the glory always goes to Thrawn, and she's done with it. She's tired of it. She has to find a way of breaking out from that, and by the end of the book, she finds a way. It's going to be very interesting moving forward. For Thrawn, like I mentioned, who is oblivious by choice, he can. It's going to be very interesting if he decides to learn more about political ramifications of the Ascendancy inside the Chief structure, but this might be the first battle that he's not prepared for because he doesn't care. Politics, you do whatever you do. I'm here to save lives. That's not that's not this trilogy. It's very political, and Thrawn is ill prepared for it. So we'll see how much that's going to play into book 3. So luckily for Thrawn, and maybe not for some of the readers, like I mentioned before, he's not present for a lot of the action, especially the ones dealing with politics, the political fallout, or everything that is happening. But it was also by design, since Jixtus, he had heard about Thrawn, heard that he might be a problem. He wanted him as far away from what he was doing. So the one that told, or that put into the back of the mind of Thorfinn and Sistalmu that there was something brewing between those rival pirate factions on the outer edge of the chaos was Jixtus and Haplif. That got to Thrawn, he got sent out to the other side of the chaos, so that way they could control the actual closer to home, which was a great job by Haplif and Jixtus. Just get Thrawn out of the narrative or out of the equation. We don't have to deal with him. I was fine with this omission, like I said before, because one of my biggest critiques of Thrawn and of Zahn during my previous review was that nothing ever faced Thrawn. He was always ready for action. He always had an answer, so it didn't have any stakes. The book didn't have any stakes, as you know, nothing was going to happen. Thrawn will find a way. Here it's different because it's a totally different cast of characters. We don't know what's going to happen. So since he wasn't present for most of it, it created that every battle and every dilemma, you didn't know how it was going to turn out. So that made the book more interesting, at least for myself. Not to say that Thrawn and his unmatchable military mind weren't in display. There's a lot. We get plenty of Thrawn being Thrawn. From being the only one to notice a dismal change in enemy battle tactics to coming out with the wildest attack plans imaginable, Thrawn is still the cheese to beat when it comes to when Jixtus comes calling in Lesser Evil. Thrawn is still going to be the one to beat. But in this book, he played a smaller role, and I was 100% on board with it. So the villains or adversaries, because they might not be villains if you might understand the where they're coming from, they're more fleshed out and are more interesting in this book than on the previous one. From the cheese side, like I mentioned a few times, we have Thorfinn. These cheese names, come on, son, throw me a Tim. Give me a name I can pronounce. Thorfinn and Sistalmu. So their plan and motivation to remove Thrawn are better laid out, and by the end, with Lakinda's possible family upgrade, then Thrawn might be facing an uphill battle from within the cheese. Thorfinn, who is also a myth, same as Thrawn, part of the non-ruling family, became the patriarch, the myth patriarch. So he's basically the one in charge of all the myth. So now he has a way to control Thrawn a little bit more. And Lakinda, who was part of this other ruling family, now is going to be part of the Sith, not the other. So I'll tell you in a second because I have it here. Sorry. Irisi. So Lakinda won't be anymore part of her family. Sistalmu, which is the one working with Thorfinn, offered her to become a trial born of the Irisi. And now her name is going to won't be Lakinda anymore. Her name is going to be Zinda. She's a cool name. I do like Zinda a little bit better than Lakinda. So Zinda, again, names. I think that's my biggest pet peeve, or my biggest issue with this book. So just one character has 3 or 4 different names. But come Lesser Evil, Thrawn is going to have to deal with a new patriarch in the Myth family that doesn't care about him. Lakinda, now part of the Irisi family, now she's part of the 9 ruling family, and she has other motivations. So we'll see what's going to happen. And that's just from within the Sith. Outside of the Sith, we have Haplif and Jixtus, 2 aliens working together to expand Jixtus' reach inside the chaos, but doing it so in a way that the cheese, specifically Thrawn, are not well equipped to handle, which is from within, attacking their familial and their political structure. Both are very menacing, especially that first few chapters. That first memory with Haplif and Jixtus sets the tone for both of them. They're both menacing, smart, and motivated. Although Haplief gets the majority of the pages here, it is Jixtus who I'm interested in learning more of, especially since we learned, by the end of the book, that his species are the Grisk, which are the aliens that were the villains in the previous Thrawn trilogy. And they have this cloaking device for their weapons, I believe, for the weapons or their tractor, because he's very interested in knowing how the Chiefs navigate through hyperspace. He doesn't know about Third Sight and the Skywalkers, so he wants to know about them. And then, if I remember a little bit about that first Thrawn trilogy, that's something that when they were traveling to hyperspace, they getting pulled out. And I think they have this machine that was cloaked that helped pull them out. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Jixtus learns about it in the next book. Whew. So although I did enjoy Greater Good more than Chaos Rising, there were still a few points of contention. Cheese names, I mentioned it like 20 times already, is still an issue for me. And here I have it. Especially when we have names like Lakansu, Lakris, Lakpro, Lakjiv, and Lakuviv all mentioned in the same page. Like in 3 paragraphs, you get all those 5 or 6 names, all very similar because they all come from the same family. It comes a point that you don't know who's who. It can get very confusing. Also, the build-up. The build-up to the aftermath of that final battle that would lay bare all the inner conflict of the Cheese family dilemmas that we've been going for 400 pages was basically brushed aside under the rug because no one wanted to deal with it. It's going to play a huge part moving forward to Lesser Evil, but here was, okay, don't worry about it. We all got duped. We all got played for fools. Let's not say anything. So I'll mention it real quick because it is a spoiler review, so I'll say it. So Jixtus and Haplief had made it into the Chaos, into the Ascendancy, and tricked 3 different families from the 40 greater families into believing that there's this mine, that they have this mine with precious metal in this planet. It's an abandoned planet. It's just there. When in reality, that planet was where all these refugees were, the ones that want to join the Beyond, the Magi's, that used to be their planet. They got run out of there by Haplief and by Nicardum and Yves the Benevolent in the previous book. That's where all those refugees came from. They got played into believing that this was up for the taking, basically. So 3 rival Cheese family arrive at the planet at the same time, about to have a war between the 3 of them to take that planet under their family's name. But Thrawn comes in, does what he needs to do, and is able to save the day. But there's nothing happens. Nothing happens to the families. They don't talk about what happened. It doesn't break everything apart. It's just, we all got duped. We're not going to talk about it. Okay, bye. That ending, there was really no resolution. That's where it kind of lost a little bit for me. All right, let me take a sip of water before we go into our ratings or our score for the different sections of Chaos Rising. Before we do that, let's finish up with Dale real quick. We're talking about kids. Again, Star Wars and kids, Mandalorian, and now Bad Batch. So yeah, I said I have 2 kids, similar ages to Omega. He said, are they killing themselves sometimes? You don't have to answer that. Sorry, I did. I know how kids are. It just alerted me. So yeah, there's a lot of screaming. And where I live, my neighbor has kids almost the same age in front of me. Like 2 of the 3 neighbors have kids a little bit younger. So yeah, there's a lot of yelling and screaming, but they're getting better. I mean, I'm the youngest of 3, so I know how it can go. But it's all good at the end. They're about their birthdays are coming up. They're gonna be 11 and 8, so a 3-year difference. So they're still, one is obviously more mature than the other, but they still get along. But kids, man, that's why the way Omega is starting to remind me a little bit, especially with that walkie-talkie thing. So we'll see. Whew. Okay, so let's round this out as we're reaching the end of our show. So, excuse me again, Greater Good for story. So story, even though I had some issues with it, 4 probe droids. I can't say anything bad about Timothy Zahn's writing. I can't say he's not a good writer. He's a great writer. It's a great story. I was engaged. like I mentioned before, not having it always through Thrawn's point of view or him being the one that leads the action, it made me like the characters more, like made me more engaged on the story because I didn't know where it was going and who was gonna come out on top. So story 4 probe droids out of 5. Ease of reading. And here is sorry. Ease of reading, we're back again out of 3. Chaos Rising was probably 2.5. So it's a 420 more or less pages long. So it is a long book, not as long as Victory Prize. It's a little bit easier to read than Victory Prize. Victory Prize took me like a month and a half, I think. This one just a week or so. I took my time with it. So it's not an easy read. If you know Thrawn, if you know Timothy Zahn's style, then you can go through it a little bit quicker, but it's still not an easy read like some of the High Republic books. So, okay, not perfect, but 3 probe droids out of 5 for ease of reading. So we follow with our next category, new characters. I give it a 4. So great characters. Now go to Lakinda. Lakinda might not be a new character, but it seemed like it because she got fleshed out the most. We don't get a lot with Bakif, who was a big force in the first book, maybe a couple of pages. Lani just mentioned a little bit more, especially at the beginning and then in the last battle. But here, this is Lakinda's show. Thrawn and Lakinda. Then you have Hap Leaf of the Akbui, who gets a lot, and Yeef and Jixtus. So new characters, great characters are introduced. Hap Leaf didn't make it to the end. He got killed by a farmer, Lakuviv, I think it was. Again, he was doing bad things. So Hap Leaf didn't make it, but good character throughout. And then, of course, our main bad, Jixtus. So canon connection, I give it a 3.5. It connects great to Greater Good, obviously, to Chaos Rising, connects a little bit to the other Thrawn trilogy books, now with the Grisk in play, the mention of the Force. So 3.5, a good canon connection, setting everything up for what's going to be this final book, Lesser Evil, in November. Then expand Star Wars. So this is something you gotta give it a high mark. So expand Star Wars, 4 probe droids out of 5. You learn more about the Chiss way of life, the political ramifications of every action that they take. Everything is recorded so it can be used against you afterward. One thing that, even though I didn't like it too much because it just goes on and on in the memories with Hap Leaf and these 2 people about to get married in their year abroad, basically just touring the chaos. So you learn more about the Chiss, but it's a little bit long, a little bit winded. They're going to this bird migration, but that's how Hap Leaf learns more about the chaos, about the Chiss. So it has to be there, but it does expand Star Wars. The unknown regions are growing, and that's thanks to Greater Good. So finally, what's our overall score for Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good by the great Timothy Zahn? Our final score is 3 3/4. So 3 3/4 probe droid for Greater Good. So an improvement from Chaos Rising, which was 3.5. If you like Greater Good, sorry, I keep confusing it. If you like Chaos Rising, you will like Greater Good, even though there's less Thrawn in it. So that might be a little bit of a change. But if you were like me, that had some issues with Greater Good, the pace, not the pacing, but the way that the story is written, Greater Good fixes those in my eyes. So give this book a chance. If you love Thrawn, if you like Timothy Zahn, if you want to learn more about the unknown regions, give it a shot. Greater Good. I give it a passing grade. I used to check it. Del Rey, Star Wars, another great book by Del Rey. Someday I'll have Del Rey send me some advanced copies, hopefully, and we can review them here when they come out.